Anyhow, it's actually a great pleasure. We got SAR here today, which is awesome. We got Sean and Jacob to come down here and talk to us about everything that goes on their end when we hit our SOS. And they get to ask us a bunch of questions about our gear and, you know, just so we can help each other better, make it quicker, and all that good jazz. Yeah, without any further ado, I want to be conscious of everyone's time. We're running a little bit late. So, yeah, guys, come on down here and we'll just get this thing started. They actually.
I should have brought some business cards, eh?
Maybe. Well,
Is that another one? No, I'm looking at it. So, it's not. Points. Bye. Is this thing on? Maybe? No. Oh, is that all it is? Okay. Oh, wow. Crazy. Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Sean Sublet. I'm the president, one of the search managers for Mission Search and Rescue. Really happy to be out talking with everybody here tonight, this evening. I've been a part of the team for 12 years. I've had a little bit of interaction with paragliders and rescues, and over my time on the team, I think we've had 4 or 5 kind of call outs or incidents that have been because of what you guys like to do for fun, and unfortunately, it's not always fun for everybody on every occasion. So we got a little PowerPoint here tonight that'll just kind of talk about us, what we do, how we operate. Just quick show of hands for the people here. Anyway, who has like a really good grasp and understanding of how SAR works, how we're called out, kind of the functions of us, and how we go? Perfect. Yeah, very few. That's good. I like it when that's the case, because then it makes this PowerPoint a little better in the fact that we get to talk about how we work and how we operate, how we're called out. So I'm Sean. I'm going to go through a bit of that stuff, and I'm just going to let Jacob introduce himself here and talk about himself for a minute and his background and where he comes from.
Well, yeah. Hi, my name's Jacob. I've been on the team for about 3 years now. I'm an arborist / rope tech, so that pays off. Yeah, do a little bit of tree work, always climbing, doing stuff. So yeah, have some good skills to help you guys out if you get in a bit of a pinch. So yeah.
Okay, so if we want to move the slide ahead here. Maybe. Oh, yeah, we can keep going a couple more now. Awesome. So this agenda here, this talks about kind of briefly what we're going to go through with how SAR works in BC, specifically mission search and rescue, our capabilities and some of our equipment that we have, support agencies that we have access to, and how we call them out, how we utilize them, our call out procedure, quick kind of discussion about searches and rescues, how they progress, how they move forward, things that happen in them, the different types that we get called out for. This one's not so much for you guys. Well, I mean, it is good to know, but I think that slide might be hidden. It's more for RCMP and police, BC Ambulance when we give presentations to them. And then, of course, we can talk questions at the end. So we'll bump this ahead. Okay, so ground search and rescue in BC. For those that don't know, we are governed by 2 main bodies. That's EMBC, formerly EMBC. Actually, now it's EMCR, Emergency Management and Climate Readiness, and BC Search and Rescue Association. So EMCR, they kind of govern us as far as setting up policy, giving us standard operating guidelines, back-end support with funding and stuff like that, as well as operational support on the day of incidents by access to resources and approval of funds for things like helicopters when we need it immediately and on the fly. BC SAR is a society, much like all the search and rescue teams in BC are their own societies, but they're kind of that link between us, the 78 individual teams across the province and the municipalities, and the province. So they're kind of our union reps. They're the ones that kind of stand for us and recognize us in those bigger settings without having 78 different people representing a different team trying to go to a provincial meeting or something. It just doesn't work. All of our training is facilitated by either the JIBC or some third-party organizations. There's a couple of main ones around here. Ronin Rescue, Rescue Canada kind of take care of the two big operations as far as swiftwater and rope rescue training. And then first aid training is kind of taken care of however the teams want to go about it. Different teams have different aspects and how they go about it. Some teams really focus in on wilderness first aid training and going down that avenue. Mission SAR, we're really fortunate where we are actually. We've got a relationship with our fire department that's not unheard of, but is rare amongst the search and rescue teams. And so our fire department is actually teaching us first responder first aid directly in-house, so we don't have to go out and and spend thousands of dollars on first aid training. And then we have members from there that are taking the next step and getting their FR2 or potentially even EMR, which we think we've had half a dozen people now take EMR to get their EMR level of first aid training. During a task, during any sort of call, the authority, the decision making, it resides with the local police, BC Ambulance, coroner's office, whoever is the agency that brought us out. I would say 90% of the time it's police that call us out, with the few occasions being BC Ambulance calling us directly, or in the really rare occasions if we know it's a recovery off the hop, it's coroner's office. But that's very rare. It's almost always police that calls us out first and gets us tasked. That authority, what I mean by that is that, they're the ones who say, enough's enough, we can't do any more. You guys have exhausted every resource, or no, we need to keep going. Can we get access to more resources? Can we bring in more people? Can we bring in more equipment? Whatever needs to happen to keep it going. Thank you. Yeah. And so they're the ones that kind of help make that push for more equipment too. If we have the police saying, no, we want to continue on, we can have them make that push to the province to help get the funding that's required. The individual SAR teams, what we kind of bring to the table, we're a link to a lot of resources that the police, fire, and ambulance don't have direct access to. So you got things like CASERA, that's the Civilian Air Search and Rescue Association. So there's guys that live in Langley and Abbotsford all over the place. They've got, little 2-man, 3-man Cessnas, whatever it is. They go out, they go fly, and they can do all sorts of things, aerial repeaters up high. They can kind of fly around and connect comms from teams all over the place. Obviously, top end view of what's going on and being able to spot and do things from the air. Helicopter services, including HETS, which is the long line. I'm sure everybody's seen long line work on the TV, on the news from North Shore SAR and stuff like that. So we've got access to all those capabilities and a wide range of mutual aid from neighboring teams. And those neighboring teams can all bring different skill sets and people that have that. Through the search and rescue kind of branch, if we ever start to get taxed, we have 30 members on our team, but if a search goes long enough and takes long enough, those people start to get taxed out. We can start reaching out to our neighbors at Ridge Meadows, at Central Fraser Valley here in Abbotsford, Chilliwack, Hope, wherever we need to start pulling people from to help fill out the roster and continue the search efforts. We're going to bump this ahead. So Mission SAR, our capabilities kind of at a snapshot here. Like I said, we're about 31 members, GSAR trained members right now, 3 search managers. We've got 6 ground search team leaders. Those are the people who go out in the field and lead the teams and, kind of start doling out the tasks. 16 swiftwater rescue members, everything from levels 2, 3, and 4. We'll talk a little bit more about those different levels. 8 rope rescue team members, 1 rope rescue team leader. And all of our members, as we talked about, having first aid training ranging from wilderness first aid, but more so first responder first aid, EMR, and OFA 3. We can go ahead. So snapshot of the Mission SAR fleet. We've got, we're very fortunate. We have a large fleet compared to a lot of other groups and teams out there, with wide range of vehicles that can help us get to the places we need to go. Specifically, the biggest upgrade, this truck is no longer here anymore. It's been replaced with a Jeep Gladiator, which has increased our ability to run up the Forest Service roads, not having full-size trucks with giant boxes or space caps or whatever on top to have to try to turn around up there. We can jump ahead. So GSAR training, when a member is brought into the society, anybody can come off the street, apply to be a part of search and rescue in any jurisdiction across the province here, and you'll be taught these things in-house. You don't have to come with a bunch of knowledge. Any knowledge you have is great, but whatever your background is, we'll teach you the things. You'll be taught the things that you need to know to do the job. That ranges from general search management, incident command systems, which just kind of breaks down how a search progresses and how it operates and who's in charge and who's who in the zoo. Map and compass skills, survival, communications, basic rope management, and basic swiftwater safety, as well as tracking, helicopter safety, avalanche safety. We can go ahead. So rope rescue capabilities. Something I've been really proud of the team the last bit is our increase in our rope rescue capability. For many years, we just did not have enough trained people in order to conduct our own rescue. We had to rely on neighboring teams to help send more rope people, a rope team leader, and a bunch of resources over to make it happen. And I'm really happy to say for the last 3 years, we've been able to be fully self-sufficient in all of our rope rescues and everything we need to do, which is great news for you guys, because it means that if you are up a tree, we don't need to wait for somebody else to come and help us conduct the rescue, which is where we found ourselves in the past. So we've got low slope to high angle rescue training. Across our area anyway, we've got a bunch of high line and guiding line pre-bolted areas, Cascade Falls, McDonald Falls. Some of these high response areas that we go to where we know people kind of tend to fall in the water, and we can set up and pre-rig and pre-plan some bolted areas to get them out. Access to arborists that have gear and access on the trucks to reach those hard to reach areas, up trees in particular. And of course, being who we are and what we do, our gear is lightweight and easy to carry. We don't have to drag it around and go long distances.
We can show you have arborists on the teams.
No, we've got two. One's sitting right here, actually. Yeah, it's a weird thing. The province doesn't directly recognize like arborists and their training for the search and rescue umbrella. So when they come out, they're brought out. I mean, we're fortunate to have one on the team now, so it helps. But when they're brought out in the past, it's kind of been a like you're kind of working underneath your a separate set of training that isn't recognized under the GSAR umbrella. So yeah. We can move ahead on that. So water rescue and searches. We've got a 22-foot aluminum jet boat to rip up and down the rivers and across the lakes and everywhere we need to go to access somebody in the water. A little Polaris rib to get us around when the big boat won't get there. Of course, we're limited, by having the leg and the motor and everything hanging down. And this cool little craft right here, the RDC, an inflatable pack. It kind of folds up to say that big. And we can deploy it in the field wherever we need to, so we can carry it in different places. The open front that you see up there offers a lot of benefit in the sense that if somebody's stuck on a rock, or a great use for it is on ice, if they're in a hole, we can kind of push this thing right up to the hole, have a really stable base to work on without falling through, grab somebody and just pull them through that hole, bring them back out to safety wherever they need to go. We can jump ahead. So helicopter access and HETS rescue. So we have 3 members in Mission SAR that are trained on HETS rescue. That's the long line here. The one limitation for us is we are not our own HETS rescue team. We're a part of a regional team with Chilliwack Search and Rescue. So when a HETS rescue needs to happen for whatever reason, we call Chilliwack Search and Rescue. They come out with equipment and usually with a helicopter, and then we work with them, get members on the line, fly out to wherever we have to get to go pick these people out. HETS offers a lot of benefits in the sense that it reduces all of that stretcher carry time. So if somebody is really hurt, if they've got major trauma, those stretcher carries can be agonizing for them and for the rescuers. Hetsing them out turns what could be a 3 to 4 hour stretcher carry into a potentially 2-minute flight, and dropping them right beside an ambulance where they can get proper care that they need to make the recovery. So of course, with helicopters and I imagine any type of flying, there's major limitations, right? If the weather is bad, it's a no-go. If it's dark, it's generally a no-go. There's changes in that. Night vision is becoming more of a thing, and winching operations are becoming more of a thing, and we're allowing, it's allowing a lot more possibility for helicopter rescue. But again, helicopters are fickle machines that sometimes go down. We can go ahead. So an operation, as we get called out and kind of the progression of an operation, this is kind of how it runs on our end here. When we get the call, our initial job is meeting with the RCMP, gathering that information, starting to gather, whatever we can as far as where they are, what the situation is, what do they have with them, who knows that they're there. If it's a rescue, do we know exactly what the incident was, what happened, what kind of injuries we might be dealing with. Assigning a criticality rating, that's a 2-minute thing that the SAR managers will do. And it basically just, you kind of go through a little matrix that gives you an idea of like, how urgent is this response? Is it a very young child or a very elderly person who is not fit or prepared to be out there? Or is this a middle-aged or a 30-year-old male who's or female who's prepared, adventurous, has the equipment, knows what they were getting into, understands kind of what they were doing? That person can last much longer than those very young or very old who are unprepared to be out there. So that just allows us to know, like, how fast do we need to move? How urgent do we need to start getting information happening? How urgent do we need to get resources out there? Establish our incident command post, which will be our spot in the field where all the operations will be based out of. That's where everything's going to happen. Determining the search area. Again, if it's a rescue, you generally know right where you're going. But if it's a search, we need to determine how big is that circle? How wide do we need to cast that net in order to find this person? Developing our incident action plan, which just kind of breaks down how are we going to find them? Once we find them, what do we do? How do we get them out? What kind of care are they going to require following that? Providing containment so that if it's a search, they can't slip that circle. If we create a ring that's, a kilometer large that they should be inside of, we don't want them to slip outside of that ring while we're looking for them. And then, of course, once we find the person, effect the rescue. So if the incident action plan has been done well, we have a good plan for this is how we're going to find them. And once we find them, here's how we get them out. That plan goes into effect right at that stage. Keep going. So in Mission, lots of MVIs, ATV accidents up the Forest Service roads. We've got Norris Creek, we've got Sylvester Road, we've got Burma Road. Obviously, there's endless 4x4 opportunity up there. And with that becomes the opportunity for ATVs that go off the road, cars that go off the road, people who get flung from their machine and need to be pulled out. So we find ourselves out there a lot, assisting with the fire department, BC ambulance, getting subjects up the hill, pulling people out. Fire department does not have the same sort of capabilities with ropes that we do, so they rely quite heavily on us these days to deal with all that stuff. I'm going to move ahead. Swiftwater rescues. Not a huge swiftwater region in Mission that we deal with, but we do have the people and the training to go through it. We talked earlier about the Type 1, Type 2, Technician 2, 3, and 4 Swiftwater tech. So a level 2 tech is somebody who has the training to, if they fell in the water, they can get themselves out. They understand the different ferry angles and what you have to do to get yourself out. And they can work, if you imagine this line between the carpet and the wood here, the wood is the shore and the carpet is the water. They can work right on that edge. They can be right there, but they're not supposed to go in the water to go jump in after somebody. But if they were to fall in, they can rescue themselves. The level 3 tech, they can now jump in the water. They're going to swim after somebody. They're going to be clipped to a tether. They're going to reach out, grab you, pull you back in, and be pulled back into shore by somebody on a rope. Hopefully throwing like that guy is over there. And Tech 4 just bumps it up. We move that danger rating higher, moves you into the night operations. And having done that course, it's a whole different animal. You think you know water when it's daylight, then you look at it at night, and it completely changes it for you. One of our big troubles in Mission is a lot of those creeks, up the Forest Service roads that we talked about, they're canyons. And so the trouble with that is it's a swiftwater setting, but you've also got that sheer vertical wall that you're trying to deal with as well. So that's been an interesting challenge to deal with over the years in different scenarios where not only are they in the water way down there, but they're also in the water way down there, at the base of an 80-foot canyon or 60-foot canyon or whatever it might be. We can jump ahead. So from here, I think we're going to kind of talk about some of our experiences, dealing with paraglider rescue, a couple different rescues that we have, one that I was directly a part of and one that Jake was directly a part of, and just talk about what worked, what went great, talk with you guys about what we can do moving forward to make it better for everybody. So on, I believe it was July 6th, it was 2016. So we're going to go deep into the memory bank for me on this one. There was a young fella who was flying. He had jumped off St. Benedict and had done a couple of loops and circles around, and he went into the slope somewhere on the east side. From where we set up that ICP, that instant command post, he was maybe 1 kilometer up the slope, but it was like a vertical slope to get to him. This rescue took hours. Like, we ended up camping out overnight just because trying to get him out of there it took so long. So there was a bunch of challenges. Access on our end was the big one because of the steepness of the terrain, trying to get the equipment there, trying to locate the guy. Like we knew from the information that we were given, like we knew exactly where he was. Somebody was able to pinpoint he's right at this spot, and we could see, we're here, map's here, it's a nice straight line on the map. It looked super easy, but it was anything but. It was quite a challenge to get up to this kid. He sat in that tree. I think it was probably close to 6 hours that he sat in that tree waiting for us to be able to reach him, get to him, get the equipment there. The way it went down is it was, of course, just before dark before it went down, right? So it was doing the hike at night too, trying to locate him. So it was myself. We had 3 other members and then an arborist as well who came in from from Ridge Meadows, came over and helped us with this. And when we finally got to him, it was just about midnight. Arborist climbed the tree, did the rigging to get him out. Jake's going to talk about how we do the rigging to get you guys out of the tree when that happens. When we brought him to the ground, it was about 1:00 in the morning when we finally got him on solid ground, out of the tree, proper food, proper water, and we ended up camping out with him over that night. And one thing that happened is we did not have enough kit for all of us. Like we didn't have enough kit for the team members really at that point too. The benefit was it was July, so it was nice and warm. We all pretty much just huddled around. We didn't want to start a fire because it was very, very dry up there. But one of the challenges with this one was he was free floating, like kind of hanging for quite a while. He didn't have any sort of leash. So I think one thing we're going to talk about tonight is, what can you guys carry, or what can we do to help make sure that you guys can be as safe as quickly as you can? Being able to get equipment up to you guys is going to be super important to make sure that you're safe and nothing happens in that transition time, because as we learned, it can take a long time. Like we've had situations in Jake's story where they were able to fly right to the subject and make it really quick and easy. But in this case, it was hours to get up there and just grind up with all that equipment and try to loop around. We kept getting cliffed out by the terrain, right? You'd think you'd just go straight up, and then you hit a cliff band. You got to start detouring left or detouring right and going around, and scree slopes and everything that comes with it. So that was my experience. Jake, if you want to,
So for me, mine went a little bit easier than that. We were basically me and the wife were at a pet store buying a life jacket for our dog when the call came through. This is one of my earlier calls, I think maybe second or third call of my career with SAR. And pager went off. I was like, I'm not going to make it. I'm way out here. And a couple minutes later, Sean called me telling me to get going, bring your ARB gear with you. So rushed home, grabbed my kit, met them at the base of the school there in Miracle Valley. And turns out, paraglider went down up on the east side, top of the mountain. And I got there just as the helicopter pulled in. And I had no idea really what the hell I'm doing there, right? But they told me, put on the harness, you're going on the long line. So yeah, great. All right, let's do this. So I went for a little recon flight, and then they ended up long-lining me, dropping me into the forest through the canopy, threw on my kit, basically just my spurs, flip line, and a rope, and ran up the tree. And JP was hanging up there. Luckily, he was nice and close to the trunk. So luckily, he was nice and close to the trunk. I was able to set 2 anchor points above him, 2 pulleys, drop 2 ropes down to a redirect off the base of the tree out to our 2 rope teams who are going to do the haul in the lower. As soon as he was all rigged up, they're able to just pick him up ever so slightly. So I was able to unclip his wing off him and lower him down to the ground. He'd been in the tree for probably a good 4 hours at that point, I think. So he was pretty beat up, pretty tired. So we threw him on the long line and they flew him out. It's pretty interesting. He luckily had a roll of dental floss with him. I didn't think that would be something, people carry around, but it makes sense because he was able to drop that down to the base, and the team that had initially hiked up there was able to attach a sling and a beaner on there for him, which he hauled up and secured himself to the tree and made himself safe, which is, probably a good thing to do. So if you're out flying around, it's probably nice to have like a nice lightweight Dyneema sling just for that purpose. So depending on kind of the situation, if you find yourself in a nice, I don't know how fast you guys are falling out of the sky. If you're going to pick a tree to hit, I would suggest a nice tall conifer, not a big sprawling maple tree. Because then I can just spur up the tree real quick and get to you, right? Otherwise, I have to start firing lines and actually ascending ropes into a big spready canopy, right? Yeah, bump the next slide over. And then this is kind of the gear that we would be using at the base to lower you guys out. We've got some clutches like this that we would anchor off to some other trees. Great little device to pick you up and then lower you out. Yeah, bump the next slide there. So here's a little example, right? So if you're falling out of the sky, try to aim for that tree as opposed to that one. That'll look softer, but makes my life a bit harder, right? So generally, conifers out here, western hemlocks, cedars, fir, tend to grow a bit closer together. So from kind of my experience with trees and doing tree work, that would be a much easier rescue for us, right? A big sprawly maple like that would pose some more challenges, but I'll get you out of there either way. It might take me a bit longer, but
Trick, if you end up in this tree and you're, way out on the limb out here, trying to get out to you becomes a lot more of a challenge. If you hit that conifer and you end up right at the trunk, Jake climbs the tree and he reaches out and grabs you, and that's kind of the end of the story.
Otherwise, I might just cut the limb that you're in, right? So, but yeah. So, bump over to the next slide there. Yeah. So one thing we wanted to talk to you guys about, I'm sure you guys are aware, is suspension trauma. I'm not too sure how it kind of works for you guys because your harnesses are designed to be in suspension. But I imagine if you get tangled up in the canopy of a tree or you're, hanging kind of awkwardly, you might start developing suspension trauma. Something I deal with a lot, in the back of my head, doing industrial rope access work with a lot of people wearing fall arrest harnesses around us. So if you get caught in a situation where you're in suspension trauma, it can be, research says 10 to 45 minutes could be death, as early as 5 minutes, depending on level of fitness. Basically, the veins in the backs of your legs, the arteries get pinched off, and your heart rate's going to go up. And over time, that blood becomes toxic because it's saturated with carbon dioxide. And if that goes into your heart and goes into your brain, that's what eventually kills you. So yeah, if you do, come out of a situation with suspension trauma, we're going to set you down on the ground in a sitting position with your knees tight to your chest, just for that blood to slowly dissipate. Because if you stand up right away, there's a risk of all that toxic blood rushing up into your heart and into your brain, and that can cause death, right? So the key is slowly letting that blood out and start circulating through your body again. Yeah. Just having that blood pressure cut off from the backs of your legs from the harness is enough to start poisoning your blood. Yeah.
It's essentially when you put a tourniquet on, if you get a major bleed, from a cut or something like that, if a tourniquet goes on, you twist up that tourniquet and it sits there for a long time, this arm starts to go dead, right? Everything that's in there is dead. And the same thing is with the tourniquet. There's, the research, if they undo that tourniquet very quickly without being prepared for it, all that blood just flushed back through the system, and that's what'll take you out. It's just like that. It's essentially the same. Yeah. It's essentially the same process, right? You're just blocking all that access for. Yeah.
So anyone that's here work construction, I'm sure you've done fall arrest courses and stuff. That's a big one, right? So I don't know. There are products out there. Maybe it'd be an idea for your guys' harnesses where you have tiny little pouches that you can deploy, and it drops down 2 foot loops. So you're able to put your feet in those foot loops and stand up and just unweigh. If you're in the tree and you're close enough to a limb, it's good, get your feet moving. Try and get that weight off your harness, right? Stand up if you can and just let that blood flow, right? And not have it get so pinched off, right? So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's not good for you either, right? But yeah.
About what can you do to help us, or even help, well, initially, what can you do to help yourself, be able to survive the situation and live to tell another tale and fly another day. And then on top of that is then what can you do to help us once we are able to get there? So the biggest thing for helping yourself, like Jake mentioned, if you've got some way, most importantly, if you've got some way to sling yourself and hard tie yourself to that tree in whatever fashion, if you've got a sling, a lanyard, an extra carabiner, anything that you can like loop around a branch, I mean, a good branch, not a little pinner one, but
carry kits, tree rescue kits, but it'd be interesting to see when we all have them. It's
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you have in yours? What's
gardening saw, wire cutters.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah,
20 meters of stuff in front.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
That
Yeah.
seems pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah, and finding yourself
Figure that one out.
in the right situation for the kit that you have, right?
Yeah.
So
Myself, and I'm the way.
Yeah.
that's your safest
So
bet.
that is, yeah.
Mhm.
Like waiting is probably the safest bet, because if you find yourself in that situation, it might not just be okay, I've secured myself and I have the stuff to get down, but the adrenaline kicks in, or maybe the adrenaline's dropped out after that excitement of falling out of the sky and trying to find that nice tall coniferous tree for us to get you out of. But anything can go wrong. One slip could be the end of it. And if especially if you're flying with somebody and they've seen it happen and they've made that call to 911 to get us moving, then that'll greatly increase the odds if we can get there and assist with that and not leave it to one person by themselves to try to make it happen. The other one, of course, is a medical injury, right? If you get up into that tree, I've never crashed through a tree, but I imagine the chances of getting a good cut or something like that. So considering some medical equipment to deal, like first aid equipment to deal with something, if you do catch a big cut, a big bleed. I mean, if you've got a big bleed out there, if you catch a big artery in your arm as you're trying to fend a branch away from your face or something, it won't matter how quick we can get there, because we're not going to get there before the blood stops pumping. So having some sort of pressure bandage, some sort of way to clot, block, stop a wound is would be really important. I mean, Jake working in arbor work and with chainsaws all the time, right?
Yeah, we keep pressure bandages with us all the time. We have them on our harnesses, right?
Yeah.
Because especially if you're in the tree, it's matter of minutes, right? So if you have anything, just slap some pressure on it, is going to go a long way.
Yeah, that's going to be the biggest one. I mean, if we can get anybody out of a tree, but if you've got something else going on before we get there, we can't necessarily deal with it, in a timely fashion. So that's a huge part to it. And then on top of that, like speaking of the senior pilot who said like, I'm just going to lash myself to the tree and wait. So I'm not going to name names on this one, but there's been some incidents off of St. Benedict where there's been crashes, early off of takeoff, or in the first few bits there. And the decision was made. I mean, in one of the case, this woman was on the ground. The decision was made that they were going to move her on her own or on their own, get her up to the road and drive her out in the truck by themselves. And I will never forget the screams of this woman as I heard the truck bouncing down the road. Who's flown off St. Benedict? Yeah, so you guys know what the road's like up there. So this poor woman was bounced down the road in the back of a cab of a truck after crashing, and I think she did have a couple broken vertebrae. So if somebody and we had been telling them we're on our way, we're on Sylvester, like we're like maybe 10 minutes away. Oh no, it's okay, you can stand down. We've got her. She's in the truck. We're loaded. We're like, no, don't move her. Like we're on our way. We've got the equipment. We've got the spine boards. We've got the vacuum mattresses. In a bad situation like that, HETS is going to be the best option for everybody. Keep that person right there. We'll bring a long line in right beside them. We'll pluck them up from that position. We don't have to move them up a cut slope or up a fall line or whatever. We just pick them up, put them right beside the ambulance, and they can deal with them properly. So it's those situations get excited and they get excitable, and it's easy to move ahead, but just always try to remember, if you've made that call for help, we are on our way and we can offer the best chance of a full recovery for anybody who comes out. So That's a huge piece from our end, just because we've seen it time over again where you kind of, whether it's pride, whether it's, embarrassment or whatever, not wanting to get, somebody else to come in and pull you out. But it's, at that point, it's about that person on the ground. It shouldn't be about anything else. So
Yeah, especially when you're dealing with big trauma like that, right? So yeah, better to stay put and get put in a proper stretcher and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as far as you guys helping us, now we've got there. You guys are in the tree. What do you have to help us? I mean, carrying a line is a huge thing, right? Chances are what's going to happen, if past experiences are to be repeated, and I hazard to guess that that's how it's going to go. The first team to find you is going to be a ground team, not with an arborist, probably not with rope rescue gear. It's going to be that IRT team that was sent out like, we know that they're roughly on the slope. They should be within this case. So take a first aid kit, take water, take food, take maybe extra clothing, depending on what the weather is doing and what's going on, and just get to that person. And knowing that the chances are that that person will have a line of some kind that we can start passing stuff up and down to you is going to be huge, right? Because we can get you food, we can get you water. If you're cold, we can get you, warmth, whether it's layers or an emergency blanket or whatever you might need to make happen. But that's going to be a huge piece because that's what's going to happen first. And getting
that securement to the tree. Yeah.
Getting an arborist there, if it's good weather, we know we can fly him in and drop Jake right at the base of the tree. Might be the case, or if it's the case of that, the night in 2016, it could be hours to get people up the slope and get all the equipment there. Yeah.
Oh,
So for us, the best bet for you guys is to call 911 at. Oh, okay, sure. So the question was, how do we want to get the call? We want to get the call through 911. Like that's the only way that we can get tasked out. So you or somebody, whether you're flying with somebody and you're able to make the call yourself, or if it's your partner you're flying with, or I'm not, if you guys, I'm not sure if you have a check-in system once you go up and down or.
for a lot of the terrain, cross-country terrain.
Yeah.
We'll fly with spot.
Mm-hmm.
Reach
Yeah.
process of, everybody. One of the things that I find a little bit discovered is I find that people carry these devices and think that's it.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
You're quite sure you get the guys with the cell phone.
Yeah.
The cell phone's going to save my bank.
Yeah.
Coverage.
Yes.
Yeah. That's the biggest thing is we got to know where you are, right?
I punch my aim range. What's the path that gets you?
So those ones are easy because they've got their call center and basically they will call local authorities. So we actually I was really excited. Well, I'm a SAR guy, so I got excited when we get calls. But we got a call for a spot device, and we got a call for an inReach recently, and we hadn't had that before. So I was really excited about that because I was curious how that was going to go down. And for us on our end, it's no different than if somebody calls 911 because the way that they're set up with their call centers, their call center gets the notification that you send off on your device. They call local authorities, being the local police, whether it's municipal or Mounties or whatever, and then they task us out from there.
Police first. I think I try to get hold of you. That'll be that's fine. And then my wife. Yes, then on this. And then if they don't get hold of that, then I think they'll call.
What?
I'm just wondering at some point able to punch my nines by SOS.
Yeah.
And at some point the SAR have access to the communication.
So we can through the call center. Yeah. So through when it the way it worked before, I was able to, because I said, can I, you have access. Can you message them back and let them know that we're on the way, kind of thing? And she's like, yeah, we can do that. That's not an issue. So.
Sylvester. I think the one incident I was there to witness. But you guys were at the edge of the cellular coverage, and that was your primary. No, don't get back ahead.
That was your primary communications with cellular,
right?
And so that would be going through through the 911, and then back to the call center.
if it was cellular, then it would, like, if they called 911, it would be through the police, and
There's
then
no way it could get handed off so that you could begin directly communicating. Because with the inReach, you have the ability to
Yeah,
directly
once
communicate.
the call is started, we could definitely line up direct communication. But like for getting the call started, that has to go through our CMP and 911 first. But after that, we can. After that happens, getting that communication two ways is something that we can definitely set up. More importantly, what I think we're going to look into and try to get some of our radio guys to work out is sorting out the frequency and pre-programming in frequencies so that we can try to speak directly to you through the radio. Like if all members or if all pilots fly with a radio and everybody's kind of running off of one frequency, then that'll make it really easy once the call is started. Oh, okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Question about that in particular, when a helicopter's coming in for a rescue, a lot of pilots are still in the air. If they don't have the radios to this, we might not know. But I know that up in Squash,
Mhm.
they had talked to SARS up there. There was going to be a WhatsApp group. So if a rescue was going on,
Oh, interesting.
go into WhatsApp. But
Yeah.
it's never used, and that was years ago.
Right.
I actually typed in a question for me to ask you. Is there any possibility for you guys to have a WhatsApp group with us if you know it's a paraglider? Just tap that in because that'll spread out the community immediately and all the pilots get out of here. But we're supposed to have a radio,
Mhm.
but oftentimes radio is not great.
Yeah.
So is that a problem for you guys in the past? And what might you recommend for us to communicate with you guys in order?
Yeah. I haven't noticed it directly being an issue with like the helicopter coming in and having to get other pilots clear of the area. I mean, for Mission SAR, we use WhatsApp we have all sorts of WhatsApp chats, whether it's just general team related, task related, for our different operational committee groups and stuff. So we're pretty familiar with using WhatsApp. So I mean, if that's something you guys are familiar with as well, I mean, it would be definitely something we'd be open to. Any way to try to link between the groups to pass information along if it is a matter of, we need to clear the skies and make room for somebody to get in.
Sorry.
Yeah.
People on radio
Yeah.
saying, we've heard SARS is in response and the air, stay clear of the area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like
Yeah, when we, when we get a call, I mean, specifically for Sylvester and St. Benedict and kind of that zone, because that's where all these incidents have taken place so far. Like our go-to is I assume like the school is where you guys land when you come down there, right? Is that where kind of generally? No, okay, yeah. So the school is where we set up our ICP when we're dealing with an incident in that area specifically for a paraglider. That's generally where we go because we try to get a helicopter to long line people in whenever we can. It's a great place for us to stage. It's out of the way. Now the school's closed. It's really private. We don't have to worry about other people and making room for other agencies or whatever. So that's where we'll be based out of, right? So luckily that spot does have cell service. Not that it matters. We have Starlink in the command truck now, so we can get cell service communications wherever we are. But yeah, I mean, some sort of WhatsApp group or chat, if we wanted to talk about that and try to set something up, be a great way to link us through. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Hey JP. Sorry, I don't have any good photos of them. They weren't the best. So
there you go.
And then there's quite a resource from the pilots in the air.
Yeah.
Help him down an area.
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely. Like on that call that I was on, I believe that's how we got JP's location was from the other pilots. I think someone dropped a pin.
Helicopter landing pads out there that weren't usable to land on, but long lining in were easier.
Yeah.
The other places that there's
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
You are going for still rescue. What frequency is the helicopter broadcasting on your position? So 126.7, is it Southwest Area Aviation Radios?
Okay. Yeah.
What station would we want to be on to know that you guys are through?
Yeah, I'm not a pilot, so I don't know the frequencies for sure. When I jump in the helicopter with them, they've got two radios. one that they'll program for our SAR channel so that we can, if I'm in the helicopter, I can talk to guys on the ground. And then of course he's got his main channel. So whenever he takes off, he makes his announcement. This is, GHB taking off eastbound, and you know what I mean? Like, so whatever the main air frequency is right.
Yeah, all our radios we've got pre-programmed already,
Yeah.
right? So yeah.
Training so in the spring when I get called from him telling us that they're going to start a retreat. What not you where they're in turn. So that'd be a great question to mine. Yeah, so 167 is the part time. It's a unit cost 167 unit cost. That's 126 dollars. So that's right overall. It's hard because you also want to play the simple part with this. Yeah, there's all this. Yeah, it's like a first standard, but go to 121.5. You can probably get some area. Yeah, I'll get something smoother. Stuff like regular. Sure. It's not covered in yeah. I'll be talking about, to change that. We'll feel confident. So, we will figure it out. Some of that. So much like I thought it might be an aircraft reading. I'm the aircraft going through is 12207, let's say, but you're supposed to switch on to that frequency when it's so yeah, it's complicated around here because there's all the different there's the lower mainland. It's even south of Mount frequency. Yeah. And of course most of our crew are flying on FM. So yes, but FM is then they're flying on a amateur band and it's pretty useless. That's where the spot comes in or the inReach comes in. It's pretty unit
Yeah, we could bump the slide ahead. I think that might be the last one there anyway. Yeah, so Q&A. We could continue on with the Q&A anyhow. So yeah. Absolutely.
Particular coordinate system that you prefer? Decimal degree, degrees, minutes, seconds, these three words. What is this?
Definitely not these three words. Yeah, definitely not these three words. Yeah. That one I can tell you right now. If you give me what three words, I'm not gonna know what to do with it or how to use it.
We'll give you 2 words back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Good luck is what it'll be. So yeah, our kind of most of our members are probably most familiar with UTM. So that's the 1010U, and then you've got a bunch of strings and numbers for narrowing it down. But really, it doesn't matter if you give us decimals, degrees, minutes. If you give us minutes, seconds, we can plot it all in immediately, and it can be converted to whatever we need to. I mean, the helicopters prefer Latin long because that's what they use. But for the groundwork, in the command truck, I'm generally using UTM.
So it's got an indication. We all might have our particular
it's
set up different. If you're at reading the RC, that's what we make it.
No, I've had everything under the sun, as far as given to me as, okay, they're at this spot and they give me a coordinate in this, that, XYZ, whatever it may be, and we can plug it in and get it to whatever we need it to be. So yeah, we're pretty universal in that sense, minus the what three words part. We won't do anything with that, but. Any other questions? That's kind of the end of our presentation. And
police calling after they're calling us in the night. Are they really calling you, or are they some kind of?
No, speaking for mission in particular, the detachment there is pretty good. Like when they've got a couple of there's a couple of key words that they get, and they just know to call somebody else. Like you're not gonna. hey, I'm stuck up in a tree, and you're not going to wait for the constable to come drive out there and confirm, oh yeah, look, he's stuck in that tree, right? Like they'll make the call to us almost immediately afterwards, right? So
But yeah, whatever it is that they do, they're determined whether they're going to call you or not, right? It's not automatic that they're calling search and rescue. We call 911. They just say no. Right.
well, so once you call 911 and it gets passed to a constable, I guess that would be probably the link is when you call 911, you'll get the dispatch. They'll take your information. They're gonna, that dispatch will work out. Okay, he's in mission. We're gonna pass that over to the mission detachment. It gets filed over to whatever Constable Rick. Constable Rick gets the information, and again, speaking for the mission cops, they're pretty good about knowing their lane and knowing and for the last probably 10 years. I've been giving a relatively similar presentation to the constables in mission every time they kind of have some changeover. So I usually shoot for once the best chance of recovery and survival for that person. So we've pushed all our supporting agencies pretty hard to call us early, stand us down if you don't need us. We're happy to go home and go back to bed, but it sucks getting called late. So
Yeah, the kind of the other reasoning behind it is to if you were to call us directly, we are not covered. So we can't leave we don't leave till we get a task number. Once we have that task number, we are covered under insurance. So if I leave my house and I get into a car wreck, I am covered through our search and rescue insurance, right? But if you were to call us directly and I hop in my truck and I take off and something happens, well, I'm shit out of luck, right? So that's kind of the reasoning behind it for us too, right? Is until we get dispatched and we get that task number, we're not doing anything because it's kind of it's also an insurance thing on our end, right?
I have a question here. You said your response time for a paraglander. What is it? Okay. I know it's
well, okay. So response time to a player, is that to us getting the call or to making it to them? Well, again, that
Depends on where they are.
it's a big window, right? I mean, from the time it could be 15 minutes from the time somebody were to go into a tree to the time that we get the call, but it could be 5 hours before we can make it to their physical location, right? It really comes down to how far away are they? What's the weather like? Can we fly there ourselves? Do we have to walk there, right? There's too many variables to really put a solid number on that. But
to kind of put in perspective, I believe our last call at McDonald's Falls, from the time we got the call, I think our first truck showed up there in what was it, 25 minutes?
yeah,
And that's a bit of a ways from our base, right? So we have people that live close by. As soon as we've got members that'll show up at the trucks in 5-10 minutes, right, from their homes, right? So we can get there pretty quick to where we're going to start.
Yeah.
what in terms of from our community identifying the need, because I've been involved with multiple incidents where search and rescue needed to be called in because I looked at one particular example way out of our lanes. We got a guy way up a tree. It's like day, time of day, all that sort of stuff. But how do you expect us to assess? Because some of them are just walkaways. I mean, you guys blowing up at the trees, out of the trees, have a wire around the tree, no problem. Over a period of time to get that sorted out. There's lots of self-rescues take place. But what sort of criteria do you put on identifying the need to call search and rescue or place the 911 call?
Well, I think like Sean said, we would rather you call us and we get stood down than rather you wait, an hour or something, right? Yeah, as soon as someone goes down, just call it in, dispatch us, right? Like it's
Calling in what seem to be a
I've been on a few of those. Yeah.
And that is a problem frankly, it's a problem for your limited resources. And it makes us look bad when you have an incident on lawn, somebody dumps the lawn, and there's some scrapes, it's a minor little thing, and the pilot can be packed up and brought up to lawn.
Yeah. We don't want to just pick this guy up and walk away. It's really going to be a matter of you guys kind of using your experiences and, maybe whatever skill training that you have to go on top of that to say, to make that call, we're out of our element. This is too much for us. We can't just bring them down or if something goes wrong, it could go really wrong, right? So
well, like somebody's cracking trees, someone's praying the radio going, somebody should give the RCMP a call or give
Yeah.
911 a call and say, hey, everything's fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Relax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to kind of come circle on the WhatsApp group, right? Knowing then if it is like hey, we somebody biffed a takeoff or whatever, but nobody's hurt, but some public calls it in. If there's a kind of a closed loop on that WhatsApp group, the ability to say, hey, it's we could, because if we got a call, I remember somebody in Hatzick was sitting on their porch having a beer, and they saw somebody make a funny loop and just like disappear, like the guy's words exactly were, I was watching this guy fly around. He did a loop. He went behind a cloud and he never came back. And we drove around Hatzick for 2 hours. We drove around Hatzick for 2 hours, going to different lookout points, trying to look for something. And we're all like, this is not enough to go off of. What are we doing? Right? This does not make any sense. So,
Buddy,
yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's quite. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you can't put it out. You can't stand down and it's fine. Because that's not an emergency call. You might be in trouble for it.
Yeah.
We call
I would
non-emergency
call
for that.
the
Yeah.
non-emerge number. Yeah, those. Well, they're usually it's usually just an office line. Like if you were to Google mission detachment or Agassiz detachment or whatever, there would be a non-emerge line where you could call and say, "Hey, I'm a member of this club. This incident just happened. We just want to let everybody know it's not an emergency." And generally, what they'll do is they'll flip you over to a dispatch or to a watch commander or something. So, yeah.
To say the least, my guys are like probably pretty happy that there's a good participation in spot and in reach,
Yes.
whatever.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah. iPhones too, right? Like the iPhones have that new capability. Yeah, mixed blessing, true, but that's another one that does work pretty well. Like it's and again, direct communication too. Like I can use with that one. They have dispatch. They have their own call center, and through that call center, you can communicate to that phone. So even if it's out of service.
Yeah, like it's kind of hard to tell you, right, how to make that call, right? Like obviously if someone's injured, if they're stuck somewhere remote, not even necessarily up a tree, if you're on the side of a bluff somewhere, right? And you think it's going to be, dangerous to try and find your way out, or you're going to get further lost, it's probably better to just stay put and get us out there to come pick you up, right?
Also had incidents where pilots have gone into the tree, self-extracted, slithered off, disappeared, walked away.
I've been on those too.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about on that one.
Yeah.
Where
I remember one specifically. We were on the side of Sylvester. We had the map on the truck. We were talking with somebody trying to determine it was here where I saw it, and then like we look this way and it comes walking out the road. Yeah, like right there. So yeah. But again, like that is no sweat off our skin. Like we are happy to be called out, and we're happy to go home having not done anything, because for us it's that initial response time of getting there, getting set up. If there's that big delay, because we've learned the hard way, when there's the big delay, it does make the difference, right? And I'd much rather go home afterwards, even if it feels bitter that like didn't do anything. I'd much rather have gotten there early and been able to stand it down than have gotten there late and it have been too late.
Yeah, at the end of the day, you're probably just getting me out of doing some yard work or the dishes. Like in the past, it's like, oh hey, I gotta go.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't mind.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a nice toy.
Yeah, hopefully. So drones are like they're still in a pilot program with the province as far as using drones. So there's a couple of teams that are working with the province. If I want a drone, what I do is I bug the RCMP, because they have a drone. They don't have to follow the same standard, like the same SOGs that we have to, and they can bring out their drone pilot and they can do all the drone flying. So that's what we've done a few times now. I've been on a bunch of searches in years in different areas, and it's a way better resource. I hope that it can get to a point where we can do our own drone work, but right now our hands are tied by some policy and the way that things are set up.
Yeah, maybe if we get a drone pilot to join our team, right? But
Yeah.
Fun.
yeah, it's fun. Oh yeah, it's good times. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Sean was just recently doing some training there, picking us off the side of the mountain just this summer. So yeah, that's good. It's good times. Yeah, it's a bit of a rush. Yeah,
It's an excellent tool.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have once. I've done one tandem flight down in Costa Rica, and we crashed. So I got a bit of a sour taste in my mouth, but definitely some I'd give it another go, and it's been on my radar. So yeah, always wanted to kind of get into it. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Survivors series, climate series, community events and solvency report. Like, do you have any particular companies that you guys would recommend for tree rescue or just arborist training or even wing retrieval?
Woodland Tree Service.
Yeah, me right here. Well, there's a really great company here in the Fraser Valley called Arb Canada. They do a lot more kind of arborist specific training. But like I've said before, if come by my farm with a case of beer and I'll climb a tree with you, so yeah. So yeah, there isn't that's arboriculture is a bit of a weird one like that in this province. There's not a lot of standardized kind of training. There's some kind of a couple training schools like Arb Canada, but it's yeah. Mhm.
We do have an arborist in the interior, right? It's the arborist. Oh,
Mhm.
Any other questions from anyone out there? Pardon me?
Yeah, that worked. Dental floss.
Oh
works.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You hear about the one in Salt Spring last office?
No. No. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, dental floss worked. I imagine fishing line, anything small that's easy for you guys to carry, but has some decent strength. At minimum, enough strength that we could tie, like a small tag line that we would potentially bring, and then have like a really solid line between the two of us. So, yeah.
Next quotes ever happened. Looking out for the guy, I'm going, got a tree kit? He goes, yeah, in the car.
Yeah. It's usually the way it goes. Yeah.
Yeah.
You had
So knowing that when we're flying, first aid kits are small, but right?
Yeah.
Probably small. Are there any particular things that you would recommend that we have in there? If we're waiting for you guys, whether it be a tree or just on the ground waiting to rescue.
Yeah.
Are there any particular pieces to our first aid kit that everybody has?
Yeah, a pressure bandage of some kind would be good, and whether that's like you can buy pre-sewn ones that are basically like an abdominal pad sewn onto like a tensor bandage kind of idea, right? So you can put that ab pad on a wound and just wrap it around nice and tight. So the best way when you're thinking about what to put in a first aid kit, it's best to think about for your incident or for your sport, what kind of injuries could I see myself getting, right? Like for myself, mountain biking, I actually carry a SAM splint in my backpack with me because if I'm riding with any of my friends, being able to support a broken limb to be able to walk out or while we're waiting or whatever, or even in a pinch. SAM splint is a relatively small and lightweight piece of foam that you can use to splint up anything. I mean, they're super versatile. If you
Thin aluminum.
Yeah, it's a thin piece of aluminum sandwiched on foam. If you look up like the brand name one is SAM splint, and they're a great device. Like you can do so much with them. You can make an improvised hard collar on the fly, which is why I carry one mountain biking, so I can hard collar somebody on the fly if I need to. But yeah, circling back, it's best to think about what kind of injuries are you going to sustain. Like thinking about this presentation, the big one is I was trying to picture you crash through a tree on your way down, and you take a big puncture to an arm or to a big limb or to a big part of the body and you're bleeding bad, right? What can you do to stop that bleeding? That's going to be probably the biggest one. So
You're
Thinking
not going to
about-
want little band-aids for that.
Yeah, thinking about ways that you can stop a bleed, put pressure on it so that you don't necessarily have to hold it too. That might mean a couple extra pieces of roller gauze, or a couple extra pieces of like tensor bandage to hold it together. Well, so if you need medication like for yourself, it's maybe not the worst thing to consider. Like if you know you can only go so long before needing whatever that med is, like diabetic, for example, if you know that you need sugars or something like that, then carrying like glucose or something could be really valuable. Well, if you need some T3s to get you through it, then maybe consider that. I mean, I wouldn't, if grams turn into ounces and everything, that would probably be, I'd be more worried about the like critical intervention type stuff. So something that's going to deal with a deadly bleed or an airway obstruction. I mean, if you're having an airway obstruction, there's probably not much you individually are going to do about it yourself. But when I build a first aid kit, that's kind of what I start thinking about, or what are the big critical interventions? That's airway and deadly bleeds are kind of the major ones that I consider, and what can I do to help somebody or myself. But again, an airway one, you're probably not doing much for yourself, especially if you're stuck in a harness hanging, swinging from a tree. But
yeah, just off the top of my head, maybe one of those little tubes of saline, right? You're gonna go through the canopy, you're gonna have shit in your eyes, right? So maybe some to rinse out your eyes real quick, right? That might not be a bad idea, right?
Liquids,
Some electrolytes.
Yeah.
flying that was.
Yeah.
One of the big things that I think gets overlooked too by everybody gets a kid together, and they got all the stuff they need, and that even applies to the inReach or whatever, but it's not inReach.
Yeah.
You can't get it.
Yeah.
Put it in the back of the harness and the situation, and put them in a position where they can't get into the back of the harness. A lot of the pilots also have front mounted gear. It's has to be long so you can get it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Would you guys doing a wildlife rescue? Or would you bring us up in a harness, or would you take that over?
No, you'd be
No.
coming out of your harness.
In a long line situation, you'd come out. Well, you might stay in the harness depending on the urgency and how quick we're getting you out, but you would be put into one of the rated. So for long line, all the equipment is run through strict code, and it's all certified through Transport Canada. So the flight harnesses that the rescue attendants fly in, and the evac harness, also nicknamed the screamer suit, is all gone through like strict testing and regular inspections and certifications. And so you would be put in one of those pieces and not flown out in your own harness.
We're flying with these flying to airworthiness.
Yeah.
Of our
Yeah.
This is flying for 6 or 7 G for 8 Gs by a certification.
Yeah. It's that cross, kind of that cross of like, I'm not familiar with your kit, and also was it damaged on the way through the canopy, right? Like, can we be 100% sure that buckle or that strap is not compromised in any way? I'm not going to take the risk. I'll put you in my piece of kit and take you out that way.
I could have a big pair of people that I attached to it. Just want you know, way to work. Just hook it to the long line, way you go. Just don't come.
I mean, ultimately, it will come down to the guy on the line to make that decision. Where was this? Okay.
Flies.
Yeah. 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 Well, it depends on the state of the situation too. Like if the injury is so bad that really that should be in so the piece of equipment called the can we double back a bunch of slides here? We'll go way back to the beginning almost. Oh, go back. There we go. So this piece of kit right here, the red bag here, that's called the ARP. That's the aerial rescue platform. So basically, if somebody is injured bad enough that they need to be laying down flat, or if it's a spinal, some sort of trauma in that sense, the spine, whether it's a vacuum mattress or a spine board or whatever it is, they'll be laid in that thing there, right? So once you're out of the tree, if the injuries are so bad, if there's any risk, if we think there's any risk to spinal, if you're complaining about numbness, tingling, back pain, can't move my neck, whatever it is, you're going to go into some sort of spinal kit, and that's how you're going to come out, is in that red bag like that. So yeah. And that'll totally change the course of it, right? If we're able to talk and assess and like, hey, I'm good, I just need help, man, like that, and that conversation would happen from the rescuers on the ground. But yeah. Pardon me?
Well, initially it was on the radio, but they had some text right down at the base of the tree, so it was communication with them. No, it's fly pretty.
So are you guys roughly aware of the dangers of paralyzing and trees and the lines and stuff? It's like if the lines wrap around anything and stuff, you can just pull off fingers and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And some
I feel like
Wow.
Being aware that stuff like really fine a line that has 1,000-pound break point or whatever.
Yeah.
Break point. Kiting, kiting gloves, kiting practicing technique. You kite gloves. This stuff when it's all around the treetops and you're working at it, be aware that you can slice an ear off, nothing to it.
Right.
Oh yeah, I know. I play with throw line almost every day, and same thing. I fire that stuff out of a big shot, and if it loops around a finger, it's taking a finger with you, right? So definitely well aware of that fine string like that. Yeah.
Line.
Yeah.
So offline, you gotta separate that gap. Actually, right, there's a couple incidents in Europe where the glider was driven down.
Yeah.
Because of the prop wash and the pilot
Yeah.
still attached to the glider.
Yeah.
Well, it caused a fatality in Europe.
Yeah.
And it's just being aware of the fact that if you bring the prop, the rotor, the wash over top of something that big that's in the trees, it can also create a hollow.
Yeah, so
Yeah, that's a good point.
generally speaking, the pilots, especially if it's like a paraglider or hang glider in a tree, they're not going to drop the long line right beside us. It's going to be, it's going to be over a bit, or it should be anyway. I think when they went up for JP, it was they got dropped off to the side a little bit. There was a clearing, and then they hiked over to the site, did the rescue, hiked back over to the extraction site, and picked them up from there.
Yeah, generally you're not getting dropped just wherever, right? You're getting dropped in the best clearing, which can be a few hundred meters away, right? Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is the long line?
They can go up to 350 feet, I think. They've got, the main line is 150 feet, and then there's a bunch of auxiliary lines that can be tacked on. And so the way the whole HETS operation will work is if it's decided that we're going to use HETS to either access or extract or whatever is going to happen, the HETS team will come in, they'll do their quick briefing, like 2 minutes on the ground. Here's where we're going. This is what we're going to look for. This is what we're going to do. The rescuer and the HETS team leader will get in the helicopter with the pilot. They'll do a recce flight. So they'll fly over the site. They'll look for their access point. They'll look at what direction they're going to come in. The pilot will assess all the things like the slope, the terrain, the wind, where's everything coming from, so that he can have his best approach in and out once he's got the line set up. Once they do that recce flight and determine, okay, so subject's here, I see a clearing over here, we're going to set you in over there, and then you guys can hike over, come down. The machine is set down, stays running at this point. All the lines are hooked up to the bottom of the machine. Everything is safety checked. The rescuer is clipped in, and then everything takes off from there. So that's kind of how that operation will go. And at that point, that's when they're deciding, the pilots are making that judgment call that like, okay, it looks like we're going to need this length of line or that length of line. And these are pilots that have done, there's like, I think there's maybe 4 pilots over the 10 years that I've been doing HETS rescue stuff that I've flown with. It's the same guys. They've got lots of experience, and they know their lines and their lengths, which is nice. Pardon me? For HETS, there is no crew out of Abbotsford. Oh, well, the machine, we generally like to use Contour helicopters. They're out of Fort Langley. And then you've got Valley helicopters out in Hope and Talon in North Shore, or at the airport there. No, that
That was Chilliwack.
Chilliwack that came out. So it was Valley that came out for that one. Yeah.
I'm a 6 millimeter rope for a hang glider for not even extra free rescue bullets. I'm brought up and I it's the white ones. It's very affordable. That's going to pay me to get down the tree.
So for
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of new stuff coming out nowadays. There's different systems. Generally, me personally, I work on anything from 11 mil to 13 mil. But for something for your purposes, there's a new stuff out there called Firefly that I think's 3 mil, and it's rated, and there's a device that comes with it, and it was like just stuff they've been using in the military for a long time, and I think it's finally coming out for public use. Yeah, it's Technor, like 3 mil Technor or something. It's got a little device, and it's rated pretty high. So yeah, there's stuff out there. All right.
Fireflies also have their own outfit in the sound.
Yeah. There's a descender that comes with it. So that stuff is available now, right? Yeah. So I remember seeing that like a year ago, and
Only
because dental floss and a month hitch, you know.
there you go. Yeah. You got one there?
take the time to they have a location. But take the time to find exactly the location of the students. And what's your idea about the just continue playing this smoke window? It's useful or not?
Absolutely. Yeah, like smoke flare, like a smoke device. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't the idea of it's in my motherland, there are no cars, everything's dry, and here the people say no, it's not allowed, but it's playlist.
Yeah.
But
I haven't spent a lot of time in the desert with some of the smoke signal systems. They are not necessarily flameless. They are combustible, and we've had several pilots that have actually started fires with them. We've tested all sorts of variations of them, and the chemical reactive smoke, it has to be put in some environment where it's safe to burn, because it is a burn. It's chemical reactive. And if you're in a really dark, dry environment, I wouldn't want to set fire to your neighbor.
Yeah.
reasons to use them, so throw them down to get what's the reaction.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause fire.
Yeah, even something like a small mirror, even
Well,
a flashlight in
yeah.
the middle of the day is surprisingly visible. I know Sean can attest to that. We were playing around with that in the middle of the day, and even broad daylight, someone shining a flashlight on the floor in the forest is visible, right?
The smoke. Yeah.
Mhm.
The smoke is nice because you can see it from farther, especially if it can kind of start to filter out through the canopy. But if especially if we're getting a helicopter involved, by far the best signaling device has just been a headlamp on somebody like straight up standing on the top of their helmet or with them looking up has been the easiest thing to spot, even in broad sunny daylight. This day here when we were doing this training, we had a team actually, they were out on this point right here on the lake, and they were right up in that top dense canopy right up top there. And as the helicopter did its first circle around to try to spot the people, it was, they're right there. They had their headlamps on and they were just strobing the light. And that was by far the most effective thing because it didn't matter. And with the night vision capabilities.
You can talk it.
That one I tried in my yard, like for with my hands, exactly for play, no beats. That's amazing. And
Yeah.
so if the bedrock, very strong wood, and
Yeah.
cover that. This one I know from my neighbors, he said, I want nothing. It's all I have a game and say, okay, yeah, sure, but awesome. That's good.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
I should trust.
Well, I think one thing that we can talk in the future about maybe is like we'd love to look at trying to do some cross training in the sense of or cross operation work and just see you get together in a controlled setting, play with the harnesses, like Jake said, like for some of us, it might be the first time we've seen a flight harness is when you're up the tree, which is less than ideal, right? And then you're talking to, I think in Jake's case, he was trying to talk to JP and find out like what's
up in the
rated,
tree,
what
right?
can what can I hook to, what's a rated point that we can lower you down from. So, doing some more info nights in a training setting where we can talk about this is our kit and this is how we're going to rig it and this is what it looks like when we get there. And
Get on the farm. Whereabouts?
Take a guess. It's in Mission. A small one, yeah.
big, I think they're asking if they can land there.
Oh, you might be if you dodge the barbed wire, you might, yeah, you could land there. Oh yeah. Let's do it.
Next scene. Wilderness first team training for job members and so on. We are just discussing about creating one. Do you guys do training?
We don't do any training, no. So there's a good company locally here, Ridge Wilderness. They do wilderness first aid training, and they're a great access and resource nearby. So yeah.
Teach us how to get down. Oh, that's the training. Chainsaw.
Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty of a good opportunity for us to actually you guys right protection honesty.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, we'd love to play around with different gear, and it gives us a good idea, right? So it takes a lot of the guesswork out, right? Mhm.
So do you actually repacks or are you coming out? Even if you guys want to come out and see areas, break a couple of harnesses.
Right.
Usually there's some test deployments and yeah.
Well, I don't know if we're gonna do that. That's job security right there.
So yeah, exactly. Can't show you too much.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Was wondering, do you have some database or some like place where we can meet up on reports that you had?
We don't know. No. Yeah, we're just we're grassroots to a degree, right? There's nothing quite that big for us. So yeah. Yeah, we have a Facebook group and like some or a page rather, but and some generic information will go up there, but it's not going to be like it won't be full of like flight data and incident records like that. Like yeah, it's not quite set up like that. So yeah.
There must be some organizational like some public access to SAR rescues, right? There's or yeah, let's do this. Later.
There are books out there that I've kind of seen and read, but I mean, we don't really. I mean, like our team, we're a bunch of volunteers, right? So it's hard enough kind of herding those cats to get,
It's different than a fire, like at the fire department you can go and see what all they've done, right? But that's because the funding, I think it's municipal funding, and the way that like it's much more open to the public in that sense. We're small. A lot of our funding is like we fundraise for a lot of our funding. We have some grants that we apply for, and we do get a there's a what do they call it? The alternate support model funding model that the province has put out. So we're guaranteed funding from the province each year, but it's so small in comparison. Like we don't track or put out like we don't have a kind of like that, like we just don't have like a server where all that information would be put. The province might. You could maybe try to look into it from that aspect. They might, but I don't know how detailed that information would be. Like I don't know if they're going to have kind of the full logs of exactly how the call went and what the challenges were and all that was. So
Positions and the volunteer position.
right at the top. No joke. No joke. Every single person in Mission SAR is volunteer.
Yeah, I do this kind of stuff for the beers and the burgers, right?
Yeah. So in search and rescue, actually, if you want to back up to the to that first, keep going. Right here. So these two groups, EMBC and BC Sarah, they have some paid positions. In EMBC, you have your regional managers, so they kind of take care of everything from forest fires to floods, earthquakes, big, if there's a train crash or SAR events, anything like that, that's a paid position. There's people who work in offices that write policy. There's specialists that are kind of spread across the province in different regions that are that are resources for us, for the teams to talk to and work on. Those are paid positions. BC Sarah has a board of directors. A few of them are paid positions, but overall, the entire workforce, so to speak, of the search and rescue community, 100% volunteer. Everybody that you see at North Shore when they go out on their tasks, volunteer. Everybody in Mission, volunteer. Any SAR team that are the boots on the ground doing the work, they're all volunteer groups.
Say, because this West Coast Soaring Club goes for Hope, Vancouver, and up to County. It's like different SAR groups that are actually.
So you'd have Hope.
There's 78 across BC, but in that area,
Chilliwack, Mission, Coquitlam,
the
Ridge.
That's true.
Squamish, Whistler. Probably looking at 11 groups between Hope and kind of Pemberton area. Well, Pemberton starts 12. No,
that's all Coast Guard.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we're ground and inland waters only. So when we call, so if I need a helicopter, I phone. Yeah, well, so I phone the province and I say, hey, I need a helicopter for this rescue, and they say why, and then I tell them why, and then they say, okay, that makes sense, and then they give me an ASE number. That ASE number it's basically a charge code that I then give to helicopter providers, and that's how they bill their time. So once I get that ASE number, I have a relationship with the helicopter companies myself. I phone them directly and say, hey, it's Sean at Mission. I need a machine. What can you get me? How quick can you get here? Here's the ASE number. They come out, and then I never see the bill. That bill goes straight to the province. So depends what season it is, but I mean, I think Contour he's got like 3 of the 350 A-Stars. Valley Helicopters, they've got I think 3 or 4 407s. I don't know what Talon's got over there. They've got a bunch of machines. They've got the Dolphin now, right? So yeah.
Oh yeah,
absolutely,
all the time.
Yeah,
especially in the summer, a lot of those helicopters are busy fighting fires, right? Yeah. So we'll request the heli, and there's nobody around, right?
Yeah. So the rescue in 2016, after we got the kid out of the tree, and we spent the night out there, and we talked to command, and we said, hey, we've got him out. We're going to camp out overnight. We're not going to hike out, in the dark. We're just going to take a rest and, try to get some, even an hour of shut eye or whatever. The call was made that they're going to head us out in the morning. And the machine actually got caught. They were fighting fires that night. They were like, we can come down for an hour. They were able to come down for an hour. We got the subject out, and we got maybe half of the rescuers out before the machine had to leave. The other half of the rescuers had to hike out because it had to leave to go back up the Coquihalla and fight fire. So yeah.
Even on my call, I ended up having to hike out because they only had time for one pick out. So they picked up the subject, couple rescuers, and I hiked out. And then the next day, hiked back in and pulled the wing out of the tree. So yeah. So I do that. I do recoveries too, eh?
Pardon me. So the Cormorant we don't use it, but there have been calls, not in Mission specifically, but I think Chilliwack has had a few. Ridge Meadows might have even had a few, where things just get so far out of hand that they actually call the JRCC and get the Cormorant out with the SAR techs and conduct the rescue. Chilliwack had a really dramatic one on was it I forget which peak it was out there now. If it was Celestia, or I think it was Celestia actually. They had a really dramatic one. The person was really hurt, needed to get the person out now. Limitations for our helicopters is they can't fly at night right now. And so they brought the Cormorant out, and they had the Cormorant pick this person out and hoist them out from there. So Yeah. Now that has changed. There's like North Shore has the ability to do night hoist now from the Dolphin with Talon. So there's more opportunity now for us to do it in house without having to call for the Cormorant. But yeah, it's been out before.
That's an A-star.
Pardon me?
Sure, that's an A-star.
The Dolphin, I think, is part of the A-star. Like it's much bigger. It's a huge machine. But yeah.
Hey, that's awesome, guys. You gotta be really cautious. Trying to clean up.
Yeah,
What time is it?
my burger's getting cold too.
Yeah.
But thanks for coming out.
Oh,
Thank you, guys.
yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I talked with Sam Waddington, so between Club and Ascent, we are giving these guys a couple of free tandems. As well as just one. Tanya! And yeah, also we've been talking with Coquitlam SAR and a couple other people, and we're going to be giving them a couple of free tandems too, just so they can come out and see what we do, and show a little bit of appreciation for what you do. You know what I mean? That's awesome. But again, thanks for coming out. It's been great, and hope.
Sounds rather blind thing was you can offer a couple of families in the club.
Yeah, that'd be great. Oh yeah, we do a lot of stuff like that, right? That's how we get most of our funding is through fundraisers that we put on ourselves, right? So
So just
maybe the pub night we got coming up would be good for that.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Well, just let us know, and then we'll put it out to the community, and so people can show up. As well as, hey, Mike, do you mind coming over here for a sec? I just want to introduce Mike, just so everyone knows who Mike is. Kind of thing. Here's Mike, and I'm sure some people might later have some questions for Mike and what he does. So if you don't mind introducing yourself. And where
Sure.
you're with.
I'm Mike Godwin. I'm with Conair Aero Firefighting out in Abbotsford. You've probably seen the red and white airplanes. There's a whole bunch of them out there right now. Yeah. So every year I talk to Greg and we kind of exchange notes so that we don't have an unfortunate incident. It would be exciting for us, but probably fatal for you guys. So we try not to, and as shared users of the airspace, we try to be good neighbors and we do our thing and you guys do yours, and ideally we don't overlap.
So training, when does training really start?
So we start beginning of March and runs into probably beginning of May. So nowadays, because of simulation, the company spent millions of dollars on simulation. So we are far less on wing training like we used to in the old days. So you won't see as much of us as you used to. However, we still are out there. We still do a fair bit of on wing training, mostly up Harrison, a little bit up Stave, but it's the transit is the problem, right? So all our guys know to stay out of the practice area where the yeah, it wasn't me. Okay, yeah. That wasn't me. Um, we encourage our guys to stay out of those areas, but we recognize that you guys transit back and forth and stuff. So, and our season's a little bit early for you guys, to understand. But anyway, so yeah, I wanted to tell
No,
you.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, guys. Well, that's it. And hopefully we'll see you at the end of the month, in February. Not 100% sure what it's going to be. It could be speed flying. All right, guys. We're out.